When you have an experience with the numinous or the mystical, the only rational response is silence or art. We can paint a picture, we can sing a song. All there really is for us to do as people for eternity is to sit around the fire together.
East Forest is a musician and consciousness guide who discovered something profound. The fulfillment we're all chasing is already here. We just can't hear it through the noise. In this conversation, he shares how to open up the door to divine guidance and creative inspiration, and why our survival just may depend on it.
You have to create the stage to be spoken to. They're speaking to us. They're like sort of knocking on the door, but we have to create this sense of opening the door. And opening the door is a choice. That's the labor. That's what intuition is. That's what the creative spark is. These are critical things to being fully what you are. And it's largely, to me, about information sickness in the sense that we're overrun.
East believes we're in a literal war for our consciousness, and most of us are losing without even knowing we're fighting.
I think if we don't, we'll die. Like, we're killing ourselves by choice. Our nervous systems, we're hacking our consciousness in a way that is completely deleterious to what it means to be a human by the greatest minds ever about how to hack our brains. And we're allowing it to happen and paying for it and participating in it.
We dive deep into practical methods that anyone can use, from how to listen to music differently to why slowing down is the most radical act available. We also explore what's coming with AI, infinite content, and the complete collapse of digital truth. East Forest response: go all in on what can't be faked.
I am devoting all of my time right now into touring, which is the hardest thing I do and the most time consuming and maybe the least profitable, but I'm doing it because I think that will be maybe the only way and certainly the most effective way to work with people and affect change in the world moving forward.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. What's up, everybody? We have Krishna, also known as East Forest, on the show today. I'm excited for this conversation because some of the music that you've created has had a huge impact on myself, my wife, but maybe for people that aren't super familiar with your story, when did this intersection of music and kind of the inner explorations really come alive for you?
So, growing up with my parents, I was someone who was a bit more of a materialist in a sense. And I just needed a strong experience to really shake out of things or show me something more was possible. So, mushrooms did that for me and music. And I've just been exploring that space ever since. And not really just psychedelics, it's more just about it was a very quick and fast experience of what life was about in a sense, or it's more about like all the things you strive for and you're reaching for in a sense in the background or in the forefront all the time. How really that's the pain or that was the distraction, and that actually underneath it all, everything was okay and more than okay. Like there was this fulfillment lurking in the background in a way that I was starting to realize is always there. And so once I woke up to that, I think that's been the only game in town in a way. And I've been exploring it ever since.
What is Ram Dass's book, who I know you've done some amazing work on, The Only Dance There Is?
Totally. Yeah. And he had some lines around that I thought that were really powerful about like when you know that there's one game in town, something like that, what else is there to do?
Right.
And it's kind of true because it's the great meta game in a way that I think we're all reacting towards or against in the background, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that there's this meta reality that we die. And what is all of this? And so therefore, am I chasing this or that? Or am I trying to get this kind of achievement or some sort of validation? And none of it ultimately will fill that gap because the gap is an illusion. And when we can fall into what is, it's not something necessarily we learn, it's more like peeling back an onion. There's a deep well, an endless well of something that isn't a destination. It's just what we are.
Mm.
And so I think that's what all practice and art and these experiences, in a sense, help you feel.
I've heard I want to dive more into that, but I've heard you talk about yourself and your music. You're more of a channeler than a producer or a composer. I don't know what the right words would be. Talk to me what that means for you.
I mean, look, I would say I'm a musician and artist like anybody else. I mean, I could argue that all art, like, where does creativity or ideas, where do they come from? I mean, I guess we don't really know. And it's been called things like the muse, or it feels more like you're an antenna and you're doing things to pick up on vibes, right? And channel that through. So it's more like feeling like you're responsible for the labor versus the fruits. So in that sense, I think all art is a kind of channeling. I don't think I'm like different in that regard.
I think I would agree with you. I mean, what comes up for me is that book, The War of Art,
Totally.
right? About, just showing up every day and then just allowing it to come through. And there's such a eh, for me, there's just such a beauty in shifting the attribution of ideas and concepts that move into your awareness from like, oh, I had this great idea. It's like, oh, okay, cool. This is here. Like, what's going on with that?
War of Art's a brilliant book because it's really interesting that there's a kind of resistance to doing the thing that fulfills you, even though it's like every single time you do it, you're reminded in a sense that, oh, I feel so much better. Like, this is good for me. I actually like this. But then yet the next day, it's the same thing. Oh, let's check the email. Or, you know what? Let me just unload the dishwasher. It's like all these weird resistances to the thing you actually nourishes you the most. And it is confounding. But the way he addresses it in that book, I'm sure you've given that book to many people or recommended it, as have I. It's very concise in the point of like, it's like, don't dawdle around with what's going on here. Just approach it like, yes, it will be that kind of battle. So just accept that, and you every day when you wake up, that's what you get into.
Totally. What do you attribute that difficulty towards in the creative process that often comes up that he talks about?
I think the resistance must lie in that it's a little bit of work and vulnerability, of course, and bravery to step into that unknown and to see what might come through. And maybe it's just parts of us that feel, I'm like, what if I fail? Or what if it's bad? Or more importantly, checking that email or whatever, the dopamine hits or whatever it is, much easier. Right. It's like, well, I know I'll get a little pleasure out of that. So let me do that. Or let me have a snack. That's a little pleasure. So I think it's stepping into the unknown and like, will I be held this time? And you are, but it's natural for that to be a little scary. I can understand that. I feel that.
Yeah, it definitely resonates around the vulnerability and the safety of the vulnerability in putting yourself out there and the safety of procrastination.
Totally. Or
I think on
perceived
the
safety, right?
right, right.
Um, it, it it's it's just like, I think we're also have a lot going on. We have information sickness. A lot of us are strung out and tired, and all these other things, all those demands. So it's also recognition that it's carving out time for creativity. It's actually required because it's very rare these days. It just kind of happens endogenously in a way. So when you think like that, I like to say you have to create the stage to be spoken to. And what I mean is spoken to by, you call it your highest self, like your parts of your wisdom and mind that are like the wisest, or you could look at it like the universe itself, or you could look at even just like divinity, like the things that are unseen, these greater energies that exist. And they're speaking to us. They're like sort of knocking on the door, but we have to create this sense of opening the door. And opening the door is a choice. That's the labor. And by doing that, we can allow what is to speak to us, to work through us. That's what intuition is. That's what the creative spark is. That's what your gut is. these are critical things to being fully what you are. And it's largely to me about information sickness in the sense that we're overrun. We have so many things knocking on a door. They're like the little knocks, but there's 1,000 of them. But then there's one that's not even knocking, standing in the background. I'm like, I'll wait, but I'm here.
Yep.
And I think crisis comes in our lives when you haven't opened that door in a way. It's like eventually the message, it's like water pressure pushing up against, not to mix metaphors here, but it's going to come through at some point. So you might as well let a little water in each day. Keep that river flowing, right? You don't want to dam it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people that come to on a consciousness path, they didn't do it by choice, right? It's like life beckoned them,
Yeah.
often through suffering.
Yes. But I want to point out that this is not like some conversation that's only relevant to quote unquote artists or creatives. I really feel that this is a fundamental part of being a human. So the act of what I'm speaking to, creating that stage or that invitation it can be through creativity and art, but it also can just be like sitting down for a second or doing one thing at a time or doing nothing at a time, even if it's for a minute. It's as simple as that. It's like just slow it down and just do this, just this, because there isn't anything else. Everything else is something we're placing on top of that. So there are some really easy ways to do that. And one of them, which I talk about sometimes, is like listening to music. Because if you really are just listening, I mean, you're actively listening, you're like, I'm listening, I'm noticing what I'm hearing, you're inherently in the present moment. You're just thinking about that one thing and it's engendering feelings in you. That's what music does. And so that's a great way. If you don't want to just sit with literal silence or nothing, or you don't feel like you want to sit down and free write or do something like that, which are all amazing experiences, but there's endless things to do that to make you do one thing or come into the now. But that's where creation starts to come through.
What is setting that stage look like in your life on like a regular basis? Do you have any rituals or routines?
The big one is playing music, and I'm often like right now before this conversation rehearsing for my tour, so I'm playing, and when I'm playing, I'm very present because I have to. I just am, and so there's something about that is equivalent of going to the gym. Like I just worked out. I worked out that creative thing. The water got to flow through. I just feel better. It feels like the day has meaning after that. It's sort of in that Pressfield language from the War of Art.
Mm.
The day now has meaning. I don't have that monkey on my back. It's like in some ways it almost feels devotional, but it also feels like calisthenics in a sense. Like, all right, did my push-ups. It's like, all right, now I can go have lunch or whatever. I can do the emails. I can do the podcast, the different things. That's very important. For me, it's also getting outside. Anytime I can be outside and try to do one thing at a time, like going on walks, even just walking the dog and just being in it, just noticing what I see. I just sense these things as uh, the other polarity of the rest of our digital lifestyles or some kind of balm or kryptonite that is really critical.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that, and this is how I feel, it's like it's never been more distracting to be a human. There's never been more coming at us. And so like just having these go-to dedicated times and practices is kind of what we can do to actually have access to the divine, have access to this type of creative insight and
Yeah,
direction.
I think it's even worse than that, or should I just say a bigger deal than that? Like, I think if we don't, we'll die. Like, we're killing ourselves by choice. Like, our nervous systems we're hacking our consciousness in a way that is completely deleterious to what it means to be a human in an experimental way by the greatest minds ever about how to hack our brains. And we're allowing it to happen and paying for it and participating in it. And I participate in it, but it's like only we each as individuals can curate our minds and our consciousness. Only. And it is not easy, especially when you have this thing, this phone amidst everything else that's like the trickiest, best thing in the world, your best friend. And the average person spends almost 7 hours a day on it, in different forms or another. So the stakes really are that high. I'm not saying throw out your phone. That's not going to happen. But if you don't carve out ways to balance that scale and bring in your humanness, it and it will be just like it's beautiful that you brought up the war of art because it's like replace the word art with like being a human. It's the war of being a human these
Truth.
days, and it's the same. Like every day you will get up and you're like, I bet we all do this. Like turn on the phone, you know. And it's like, yeah,
Right. What's
that's
the
there.
first thing
That's
you
going to
do in the
happen. That's
morning?
there. So it's like, but you have to do some of these other things these days that will be every day a war. Like I have to go on that walk or what you'll start to figure out your recipe. And so I think the name of the game is figuring out that recipe. Otherwise, there truly is no hope. You know, I mean, that's like how you can participate in this great transition that we're in. That's how you counter with your own actions, your own choices.
Do you ever feel like, I mean, a lot of people feel like there's a great awakening happening on the planet right now. And there does seem to be more and more people getting interested in consciousness and going, going on their own journeys. But simultaneously, it's like getting more difficult, right? It's like we're coming into a head, right? And the tests are getting more, yeah, just more difficult. Do you ever feel like that?
Uh, yes. And the perception of what you're saying, you have to ask yourself, is that largely through the mechanisms of digital, social media, and so forth that you're making that perception? Or is it through people you're talking to and your friends that like you actually know them and you're talking to them? And like, what is the litmus test? Where is the feedback coming from? Because I could argue that if you if you took out like what you think is going on by what you see digitally versus what you know is going on in your orbit and what you've come across, they're probably kind of different. I mean, if you really took stock, we just blend them all
Definitely.
together and we're just like, this is the world. I do it. But I think if you really try to be honest about what do I know is true, perhaps one of the gifts of peak content that we're racing towards. I mean, recently, right, with Sora and now video, we're at a place where like even this conversation right now soon will be in a place like, is this real? I don't know. Looks like I know Scott. I know he's for us. It appears to be them talking. I don't. It might not be though. This one could be fake.
I promise I'm not an avatar.
That's exactly what an avatar would say.
Right.
My point is like perhaps the freedom in that is we start to give up completely. It completely is bereft of truth because the truth is the bottom fell out. And it's like you no longer the truth truly is gone, shared truth in digital space. And maybe then it forces us into finding like what is actually real and what's around us. And so I think, you know, if we Bio Akamalafe has this wonderful line. I hope I'm not paraphrasing it incorrectly, but that the times are urgent, let us slow down. You know, it feels like we need to shrink our sense of meaning in our life because it's become overblown or become overextended in a way that's not only unnecessary, but not even helping us in any particular way. It's getting out of this idea of the economy of scale, that's
Mm.
inherently better. And that is how the entire economy is built. All right. Like money, it's the only thing on this planet. If you let it sit, it grows. You don't touch it. You know, it's the only thing. Everything else has entropy. That's not natural. Everything, our economy, most economies are based on growth. That means you have to turn things into to commodities. You have to commodify things. We're running out of things to do that with. So there's going to have to be shifts here. Uh, I think if we wanted to scale back to our own lives and the things we can influence, how can we shrink our own lives in a way that makes that which remains more potent, richer, right? Less stretched out. So perhaps a shrinkflation kind of thing in our own life brings far more depth. Perhaps you're stronger. Perhaps things, you know what I mean? It's like not as overstretched.
How do you balance that with the notion of contribution? Like I look at you and I'm like, you create this incredible music. It touches people in profound ways. You know, the documentary you just came at Music for Mushrooms documentary. the tour, right? I could see it there being an easy narrative of like, okay, we're going to do a bigger tour next year.
Yeah,
And
I
then we're
should
going
take
to
my own
reach more
medicine.
people.
I hear what you're saying. You're right. No, everything I'm saying is what I'm struggling with myself.
Dude, I struggle with the same thing.
Of
So
course
I
we do.
totally get it.
Of course we do. Look, I have technically a podcast. I did over 300 episodes. They were all conversation based like this. It was fun, but also a lot of work. And I never stopped. I did it once a week for like 5 years, got to 300 some episodes. And then the movies started happening. And I finally was like, I actually have to put something on the shelf, at least for a few months, because I can't do it all. So I finally gave myself permission to pause on the podcast. And then 3 months go by, 4 months go by, 6 months go by, and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? It's like I think it's a good podcast. I believe in those conversations, but also it's like, I mean, what am I doing? Like, I'm just doing things. And
Mm,
I still haven't figured that one out because I still wrestle with the like, but it's a thing and I built it and da da
right,
da
right. I
and
put all this effort into
and it's
it. I don't want it to
promotional.
die.
Yeah. And I haven't let it go. I keep adding episodes here and there, but it's just not as like regular. But I just was doing one today, and I'm like, why? What's my deal? Like why can't I? So this, I think it's very intoxicating, the world that we're in, and I also think it's important for us or myself to think about it in baby steps or little bits. It's not about just like I'm not asking us to go live in caves. Of course, that's silly. I am saying, how do we be humans in modernity, living today, leading a life with more authenticity, which I would hope is the goal of most people, more compassion, to be, as you say, the things we do are not delusions. They actually have impact in the world. But I do think if you can release the idea of scale, you know, that's there's a freedom in that. Like, do the podcast, but you can let go of the idea that it has to be bigger. If it's bigger, it's bigger. Just focus on the thing and whether you're enjoying it and its quality, all that is great. I think that's admirable, honorable. It's again the labor versus the fruits. If you want to do the tour, be honest about if you want to do it, but you just do it. You're not like it's very difficult to do this, by the way, because everything's fighting against you in the other direction and telling you these messages of the opposite. So, goes back to the war of art in a way. I think it's a practice. I think it's something that's not just like you decide this and that's that. It's you continually have to remind yourself and nourish yourself and do those practices that help you be like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And what you're grateful for already. It's okay for me to have what I perceive to be the greatest job in the world and sometimes say this is hard. They both can be true. And so a lot of what it means these days to be alive is to hold a multitude of contradictory emotions and recognize that you're able to do that. You don't have to stand in one place. And it's just sort of accepting that and knowing that. Like, yeah, all right. That's weird, but I feel a lot of things.
Let's talk about bringing your whole self to work. If you're like many executives, including myself at one point, you might be living a double life. You have your personal career, and then you have your personal growth journey. Conscious Talent is changing that as the world's first executive talent firm specializing in connecting leaders and companies who embrace inner work. Imagine finding job opportunities where your contemplative practice, latest retreat experience, and commitment to your personal evolution are seen as strengths, not secrets. What if you actually felt like your career supported this aspect of your life versus competed with it? Conscious Talent is building a community of leaders and companies who are committed to both combining professional excellence with personal transformation. If you're ready to merge your two worlds with a fully aligned career, join the movement at conscioustalent.com. Here you can sign up for our talent collective to stay on top of future opportunities or find your next transformative team member. I'm laughing because I have just been recounting recently to a number of friends that it seems like more and more like wherever like realizations on the spiritual journey always end up being and both are true,
Yeah,
right? It's always like and both are true, right? It always kind of ends up there.
like Buddhist koans, like the essence of them are breaking your brain in logic to the nothingness. Or
Totally.
I love the line Matthew Fox was on my podcast years ago, and I've said this many times because he said, when you have an experience with the numinous or the mystical, the only rational response is silence or art. And it's another recognition that there's really nothing to say. So we can say nothing, and that's the fullness of the experience. We can paint a picture, we can sing a song. I mean, it's a big dance. You know, it's
Hmm.
like the song "Sit Around the Fire" and that line of Ram Dass's that all there really is for us to do as people for eternity is to sit around the fire together. And I hope when you hear that, for me, I feel emotion because it's a license to let go and
Hmm.
be held and say like, you know what, the grasping, all the things, the problems, all good. Either way, you're here, and I'm here, and it's all okay. You know, so it's like it's not even a problem that we're trying to figure it out or we're striving. It's like you're still here within the great mother, so to speak, right? So that's the good news.
That line made me feel an immense sense of relief.
Yes, relief's a great word.
I know a lot of people talk about just like the power of sound in terms of how it can entrain our bodies to go into altered states or help our nervous systems. And with your music, it kind of has a distinct difference to it, my experience of it. It's like a lot of that type of um, music that's created for those purposes, it lacks like a soul. It lacks like the integration of like the nature sounds.
Or
It's
it's you,
just
are you
so
saying like a lot of new
special.
age music is bad? You're saying,
Kind of, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
well, it
kind of. I
is.
mean, but it's like a binaural beat, right? Like it can only get you so far,
Uh,
right? And there's something more core that I feel like your music taps into.
well, I think music to me is the most effective when it has heart, and the music that is the most effective in like the psychedelic guidance space, for instance, is it coming from the heart, or is it more like an idea or a performative in a sense, a concept? And then I think you can not just see through it, but you feel through it, like you're saying right away. And I think that's that word authenticity again about like, that's something that we're hungry for as people because that's a reflection then of our own authenticity of what we are. We want to just feel it and see it and cozy up to it and get close to like the truth. My buddy says, truth is the greatest good, but love is the highest truth. It's
Hmm.
a poem of sorts, and that's what we want. So when it's reflected in art or presence or a person or a thing, you want more of that. You want to get closer to it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I know with some of the psychedelic journey music, like music for mushrooms, those were all recorded like during a live ceremony. Like it wasn't like you
Yes.
went into a studio and did those.
Yeah, the yes. Lovingly, the album In Music for Mushrooms, a few others. They're what I call ceremony records and because they're recorded inside mushroom ceremonies and they're improvised. So very bespoke purpose. But that being said, I think the music stands, I hope, on its own, whether or not you're using it for that purpose. I've heard of kids using it as their night music. Parents, it's the only thing that'll get the kids to sleep. But it fully unlocks when people give it the time and space for an experience like that, because that's what it's from. That's what it's imbibed with and what informs it and guides it.
Yeah, I feel like I heard you talk about a quote that's like the essence of that music is continues like across space and time.
I think I hate using this word from the quantum space.
Nice.
It's true though in a quantum reality or physics. Things are in different locations. They affect each other across time instantly. I mean, things that are, as Einstein put it, spooky. Uh, this is measurable, okay? And in the psychedelic space, I have the sense that it's working in these meta spaces of time and reality. And we have evidence of that when you're in those spaces of the extreme synchronicities and alignments, things that are
Mm,
just, it seems pointless to try to explain it. It's just like, it's just so true in it. And I've noticed that I just feel that those medicine spaces are working not in straight linear time and space. That's kind of it's what you're getting into in a way with the chemicals and plants and fungi. And so therefore they are working with you across time and space. It's just about how much you choose to listen, creating that stage to be spoken to, as we said. Uh, it will continue to work and speak with you, but you have to listen. That is a choice. You don't have to listen, actually. Neither is right or wrong. It's just an opportunity. It's a choice.
it reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you've ever picked up like a great text and felt a particular way holding it, or reading it, like that transmission effect. It's very real with spiritual teachers, in my opinion, where you can kind of feel the essence of the teacher just by reading something. But I often think that concept doesn't get talked about when it comes to music.
What have you felt that with? Any books or something you're thinking of?
Yeah, there's a book called it's by well, I've definitely felt it with Eckhart Tolle a lot. And then there's a book called Silence of the Heart, and it's by a very kind of not well-known teacher. I think his name is Robert Grant. My memory has been really bad lately, but I picked up that book and I just felt my heart completely open just reading it. And to the point where I could only read like one page a day.
That's cool.
Like it was kind of like I can't keep reading this like just to like read it, I need to kind of just like digest it. And with Eckhart Tolle, I also noticed that his presence is so, it's like so attuned. And I would feel my system drop into a deep state of presence by experiencing his material, both written or spoken. Have you ever had anything like that
With books or with anything?
with anything?
Anything? Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to think. I mean, I definitely first thing that comes to mind is more the natural world, like places that
Mm,
I feel like extreme power and energy. A lot of mountains. I spend a lot of time in southern Utah. I have some property down there and live down there for whenever I can get down there, and it's on a mountain. And it just the reason I go is because of that feeling. Like it's an overwhelming sense of power, and I feel humbled when I'm there. But sometimes it's a
mm.
little scary and difficult, but I know it's really good medicine. So I just keep going back. But I've heard a lot of magic around, like "Be Here Now," the original Ram Dass book, with the brown pages.
Yep.
A lot of magic around that book, and I would read that and feel a similar feeling of like, this is hard to just like read because so many transmissions are coming through how I feel. I'm just like, wow, gotta slow it down.
And so we're kind of at this interesting point, right, where AI is going to make it much easier to create the perfect song for XYZ, right? Create a movie for me tonight, like all these things, right? And I'm curious what you feel like the impact of that will be.
Well, it's kind of asking a dog what the impact will be when they learn how to speak and think like a human. They don't know. They can't even conceive. But I sense in the short term that we're going to reach, as I mentioned before, peak content. We're very close. I think it will destroy a sense of objective truth beyond where we are already. I think in the music industry, it will wash out recorded music to the point where it has almost no value economically. I think live music will become more valuable.
Mm,
It doesn't mean that people won't still like, hopefully, my music or Lady Gaga or whatever. They will, but you have to fast forward in time. Like, well, where does it go in a generation and maybe even a few years? And some of this is somewhat procedural in that if you have 100,000 songs uploaded a day to the streaming services right now, and what if that's 100 million a day? I mean, it's essentially infinite. And then there's economic models where if the streamers and the majors start to make this music, which they are, some of them, well, then they're no longer really advocating for expensive human artists that they have to deal with and all the problems that come along with them, unless that makes more money. But it's a volume game, perhaps. So
mm,
I think I don't know where the line is there. It's just about what people choose to consume. If enough people choose to consume TikTok right now, for instance, and things get shorter and shorter and faster and crazier and kind of pointless, I guess there's plenty of people who want to be anesthetized by that. And maybe they want to go even deeper. It's just take that blue pill every day. And but again, maybe that's the only way through. Maybe we have to find rock bottom, and we definitely haven't found rock bottom yet, as crazy as things are. We often have to be forced as people to change. It's usually through divorce, bankruptcy, near death experiences, things like this. And then you make big changes in your life. None of those do people typically choose, or you know what I mean?
right.
So it's really what's happening on a meta scale, meta used, pun intended. So I think there's arguments to say that the process will be slower than a lot of people are saying, and I can understand that, electrical needs and processors and things like that. But then there's an argument that's fairly convincing on the other side that it's quite a lot faster than some had planned, whether, AGI, super intelligence and forth within 2 years or something, let alone 10 or 30. I suppose that's possible, right? I don't know. But what we do know is that what we're doing with a lot of those tools currently, of course, there are upsides, but just the Sora thing that happened recently about creating any video you want, and we're going to kind of erase the ability to know what's real again. So
Mm,
I think it's going to be odd. I do. I think it's going to be real odd. And you just slap that on top of ecological crisis, political destability, maybe economic collapse. I mean, add on your crisis, your polycrisis that we're in here. And uh I do think the name of the game is about inner fortitude. I mean, that's my
mm.
main message out there. Like this meditation album I'm putting out there, it's basically about helping people get in touch with the strength that's already there inside. Get familiar with that. Do your calisthenics, make it really approachable and easy, because that's the most valuable skill you're going to have moving forward is your own sense of groundedness and true north, because the rest of it's going to be unstable and the compass won't work.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I was with my wife last night on the couch and she was showing me this video of an alligator like coming up to this front door with this little kid standing in front of it. Like the alligator was going to eat the kid. And I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And then she's like, oh, no, this was AI
I was going to
generated.
say,
But
like, it's probably not real.
I
Probably
know,
looked
but
real.
like in my head, I was like, well, this is why we don't move to Florida. Like,
Well,
and
there's
like,
other
it's just,
reasons not to move to Florida, but
that's totally true too. And I was like, but like here, like it's just a small, silly example, but it's like actually like so demonstrative where fake video created. I thought it was real. It reminds me of like, I'm not moving my family to a certain place. Right. Like this stuff is really gonna, and we still don't know whether that was real or not. She thinks it was AI generated. But like this is like just like the micro scale of it, and this is about to happen in a huge way.
Oh yeah, dude. It perfectly said. Micro scale about to happen in a huge way. And We can't even conceive in the ways that it will be used and not used, and we're just in the baby steps of it too, you know? I mean, and in any industry, especially the creative industries, podcasting, music, video, films, writing, news, take your pick. All of them completely transformed.
So does that recognition, does that change how you approach things at all?
Yes.
Or is it I'm curious how.
Well, none of them are definitive, but I have a lot of thoughts. Well, that's why I'm putting so much time and energy, and really devoting all of my time right now into touring, which is the hardest thing I do and the most time consuming and maybe the least profitable and just, physically so challenging. But I'm doing it because I think that will be maybe the only way and certainly the most effective way to work with people and affect change in the world moving forward. It already is very powerful, but I think when we have such a washout of content, we'll be more hungry for that and need it, really. And
Mm,
so it's sort of like trying to build more roots and infrastructure for myself, both emotionally, but my own team, to make that like, okay, we've got some legs, some seeds we've put down, so we're not just scrambling in a sense. That's one example.
yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me. I think a lot of the things it's kind of like we're going to swing back to a lot of the old school stuff, just
Well,
like the
it's
in-person
the human stuff.
one-on-one.
We're
That's
humans.
right.
We wanna be human, right? So it's like when you start taking it away in other areas, you're gonna have to find it in new areas. Look, I used to be a photographer as my day job in my 20s and once the iPhone came out, I was like, "Alright, I can see the writing on the wall." Like, it's gonna be harder and harder for people to pay me top dollar when this kinda stuff is gonna get better and better and better, and it is. It is. They're not gone, but you know, it
It's harder.
yeah, and so, that was a slower example, so everything's accelerating, and Terence McKenna? You ever get into his stuff? He was
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
philosopher and psychedelic philosopher. He would speak about this concrescence or this casuistry or with the thing we're accelerating towards on this exponential scale, just this scale of progress, and it's very obvious to see from, the Stone or Bronze Ages or Stone Ages before that to moving towards agriculture and moving into the industrial revolution, the atomic age, the information age, and it's just graph that's going up and up and up. And here we are speeding towards what? Something. The more you zoom in on that, it's sort of fractal in the sense that you can keep zooming in, but it's accelerating objectively to what? So some say it's a singularity. Maybe it's with AI. Maybe it is. What does that mean? Is that AGI? Is that some sort of consciousness? I don't think it is. But what is it? Is it something else? Is it the end of time, as he would call it? Something that we're racing towards, hurtling towards. And what that is, as you can see how, as he would call it, the novelty is increasing. Things are getting, in a sense, weirder and weirder and faster and faster. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, so when you start talking about like Trump and stuff, I mean, it just becomes like a daily thing. It's like, what's it today? Right. But it's also deadly serious and very real and having real world effects. And so the word apocalypse, I believe, means unveiling. And
Didn't know that.
yeah, we should probably fact check that while we're talking here. But if that's true, uh, it's an interesting way to look at it, right? Like that's it is more of a great transition than just collapse. Like through the collapse may be the way that something else is revealed and perhaps the only way.
Yeah. I think about the quote that I've heard a lot of people say, and I don't know who even said it, but it's like the old paradigm must crumble before a new one can be built. And it's like you kind of seems like par for the course.
It says in Greek, it means revelation, disclosure, or uncovering.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, there you
That's
go. There
fascinating.
you go. So apo meaning off and kleptin meaning to cover, to conceal. So take off the cover.
So, well, I guess we're going to learn something big one way or
UFOs.
another.
It's UFOs.
I want to learn about that
Who
too.
doesn't? Yeah.
I'm
I
like,
wanna
hey,
believe. I wanna believe.
disclosure, cool, bring it on. One question I had for you, I know you've done some cool studies with Imperial College of London, John Hopkins. What what did you learn? What was the main kind of takeaways from those experiences?
Well, the participation is actually with, UCSF, Robin Carhart Harris, who used to be at Imperial, but now he's at UCSF, and I did some other studies that's straight science, his study on set and setting, but there's others, like, did some fun stuff with Google, and John Hopkins did, neurosthetics experiments, and so that's more like, uh, commercial science or I guess, or, projects,
Hmm.
cool projects. The thing I've learned over the years seems to be the untapped potential, at least from the sound and music space, of what we can do with sound in a very scientific and even medical way, that in real world stuff going on and how it affects our neurobiology, let alone the stuff I've experienced that's metaphysical. That's just like been the most important things I've ever experienced in my life. These are like, there's this, I interviewed Ivy Ross and Susie Mag Salmon on my podcast. They had this book called Your Brain on Art. There's stuff in there about like some study about low frequency pulses and Alzheimer's and like clearing plaques and actual effects. And I'm like, wait, you're telling me that they've done studies where someone basically stands in front of a speaker? People have been doing this at techno raves forever. That they just kind of intuitively were feeling this. And there's actually they could get the frequencies right. And it's a real scientific study and it's helping them or something like that. And or very clear results to longevity and creativity, like very clear. Like you will live longer, and they could start to measure how much it was a lot. If you're like writing songs and stuff, and then a step down if you're singing, and then a step down if you're just listening or appreciating art. Even that started to push you in that direction. So it's funny how we need proof of a lot of these things. But maybe we will start to have more verifiable data where people can start to do these things because they feel like, "Oh, I need to do that," and, like, you do need to do
Mm.
that, like
Well, it's kind of like meditation where it's like people used to think it was a weird thing and now people feel bad if they're not doing it.
yeah, and you have to demystify it too, right? Like, if I told you to listen to a song and gave you a really simple way to do it, I think most people get that. If I told you to meditate, a lot of people are like, "I don't even know what you mean." Or like, I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there thinking, That's actually one of the reasons I'm putting out this album, Lovingly Guided, not to promo myself, but I mean, it is guided
Promo away,
meditations. I
man.
wanna make it as easy as possible, so Lovingly Guidance is music from my album, Lovingly, but I speak you through, little meditations, and the
Mm.
music I think music can make things so much easier. It's pretty easy for us to put our attention onto a song and just relax. It doesn't feel like work. It's actually pleasurable, and it can be pleasurable.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about how low the utilization rate is. Like, cool. We listen to some music when we work out. Like, maybe we do it here, but like, imagine going into a doctor's office and like the music being like perfectly primed.
Well, you could argue that's gonna happen with AI, right? I mean, actually would argue that the utilization is super high. Like, we're all using music
Mm.
in more ways than we ever have, and its accessibility is higher than it's ever been. That's actually why I did things like the Music for Mushrooms album in 2019 because I thought, look, this would be the lowest barrier, the lowest friction to guide people through psychedelic journeys for all these people who are curious and thinking about it. It's like, I want to, from a harm reduction point of view, give them a tool. And this way, it's in their pocket on YouTube, Spotify, and they just hit play. And that could get them, hopefully, way down the line of having a more positive experience than nothing. Or they're like, I've heard about retreats overseas. I don't have the money for that. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to take them, or I want to. And so I just want to give people tools. And I think music is this hidden uh, savior type thing. Music is the
Mm.
messiah in a way. I say that purposely with a little cattiness, but it's right there in front of us. And I think that there's a lot of potential about ways we could use it with more consciousness and that are frankly an open landscape. It's quite infinite and has been done for millennia. That's how we've been guiding ceremonies, for instance, in every culture forever. Well, that's an interesting through line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating that we've kind of been aware of this technology that's available to us to support humanity. And I think you nailed it when we're just the conscious application of it is relatively low.
Yes, there you go. And I don't mean that to sound like it's some big bummer or a lot of work. It's more like, hey, there's just this endless potentiality, and you're kind of already doing it. Like you said, when you work out, like you're doing that to change your consciousness, to get amped up, or sometimes you put it on to chill, or to go to bed, or to get excited. Like we're doing it, and it's just so available. It's like, guess what? We could do more, and maybe it'll work really well, and you can do it how you like it, and it can work really well for you, perhaps. So I think I hope that it can be one of our tools in the toolkit.
You and me both, man. Well, I think we have to adjourn here, but this has been awesome. And I know you got a lot of cool stuff coming on with the tour, the new
Yeah.
meditation album. Can you share more just so everybody listening
Yeah,
knows where to go?
eastforest.org, and you'll see all the tour dates in Europe and Australia, and particularly in the United States coming up here, like November 25 is the Northeast, Midwest. And I can't wait. The live experience is like the thing I'm working so hard on, and it's so beautiful when we all come together. So I just don't want you to miss out. Um, I have a Patreon where you can join for free. That's where I share lots of my stuff I'm working on, and we do a monthly little gathering council. But my film Music for Mushrooms is on my website I mentioned, or musicformushrooms.com, and we're really proud of that. It's snappy. It's 82 minutes, so it's a good watch. Like it's not some like, oh, I got to sit down and like watch this educational thing. It's like no, no, no. It's entertaining. Like you can put this on with your partner for your nighttime viewing, and I think you'll be really happy. And then I have a record coming out on Halloween. It's called Lovingly Guided. It's 8 guided meditations that are easy peasy and hopefully really fun for people.
Epic. Well, we'll link all those out and excited for all that, man. I will be consuming and hopefully catch you live in early 2026.
Yeah, man, it was good to meet you and had a good time.